For more now, let's bring in Kathleen McInnis. She is a senior fellow with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome, Kathleen. So tell us more about the U.S. beefing up its military presence in 9 European countries. John Kirby says these countries were selected over concerns in the eastern flank. Explain for us why the eastern flank is such an area of concern.
Sure. The NATO alliance is it borders Russia, and Russia has indicated that, and Putin's been very clear that NATO is a threat to Russia, and so the beefing up of American presence over there is about communicating to Russia that it will not tolerate any further aggression on NATO soil. So the U.S. presence across these 9 countries is designed to help underscore that signal and underscore that the United States cares about Europe, that it is a part of this massive alliance burden, and that we are there. We are there to underscore alliance solidarity.
Well, Russia is threatening to respond. If you could, please remind us again, what are the obligations if Russia attacks a NATO member country? And then besides just what's written on paper and agreed to, how real is the threat of an all-out war between Russia and NATO allies?
Sure. The basic premise of the alliance is that an attack on one is an attack on all. And so if there is, if Russia decides to conduct an attack or aggression on a NATO member state, the alliance is obligated to come up with a response. And let's not forget, the alliance is a nuclear alliance. So there's a large suite of options. What's interesting, though, is that while Russia has indicated that it is going to be taking compensatory measures in response, the actual things that have been done are designed to show Russia that it is going to defend NATO territory, consistent with our treaty obligations, but it's not going to provoke a response. It doesn't want to go into war with Russia. It does not want for that to be an outcome, but it is going to say it is not okay to invade any NATO member state.
Yeah, and of course, we know that Ukraine had wanted to join NATO for a long time leading up to this. So I also want to ask you about Ukrainian President Zelensky calling on NATO for additional aid. The U.S. alone has already given $4.6 billion, the war now in its 5th month. How long do you expect the U.S. and NATO will be able to continue supplying Ukraine? And are we seeing any fraying of that relationship?
Right now, I think we are seeing a lot of support for Ukraine. You're right. The question is, how long is this going to last? What is it going to be in the long term? NATO itself has decided to do what's called non-lethal aid. So things that fall short of actual munitions and things of that nature, and is instead providing all sorts of other assistance to help Ukraine stay in the fight. Different nations are individually committing things like javelins and other capabilities to help Ukraine. But let's not forget that this is a bigger picture too. It's not just what we're doing on the military side. It's also thinking about things like the reconstruction of Ukraine once this war is over. Yeah. And NATO allies are getting together and thinking about what that's going to cost, which is going to be quite enormous.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we see how much it's decimated there.
Yeah.
As we're talking about NATO, I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss Finland and Sweden. They have been formally invited to join the alliance. Putin says that Russia will have to answer in kind if NATO infrastructure is deployed to those 2 countries. Tell us, how real is that threat, and might it complicate Sweden and Finland's membership in any way?
Well, you're absolutely right. The Finland and Sweden joining NATO is a huge story. Recall that just a year ago, Finland and Swedish public support for joining NATO was hovering at around 25%.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
It's not like 70%, and now they've decided to join, and Turkey decided to stand aside and park its objections and allow Finland and Sweden to join. What's interesting to watch, though, is how this is going to play out in the coming months, because it's not just the invitation to join that matters. It's actually how each member state has to ratify the change to the NATO treaty to put Finland and Sweden in there. And so what we're going to be watching over the next couple of months pauses at the individual debates in all the individual NATO parliaments to see if they're going to actually allow Sweden and Finland to accede. So this isn't over yet. But I would note that in the U.S., we had a hearing last week on this question in the Senate, and on our side, it was the response to Finland and Sweden coming into NATO was, I think we can accurately characterize it as effusive.
Yeah, enthusiastic to be sure.
Enthusiastic, exactly.
Let's also talk about the economics of this ongoing war. It's caused food shortages across the world, especially in countries that rely on exports from Ukraine. We're seeing gas price issues. In your opinion, where are the costs being felt the most due to this conflict? And how is this going to be resolved in the longer term?
That is the question to watch, right? So what NATO member states, what their heads of state have decided as of today is that the economic impacts of this war are outweighed by the risks associated with Russian aggression, right? Like Russia is trying to conquer a sovereign state by force. That is a huge problem and could have knock-on implications for how we work in the world and how the world operates. So the stakes are enormous. And so the NATO heads of state came together and they, the 30 nations declared that Russia is a key strategic threat to the alliance. That's actually noteworthy as well, because in 2010, they said that they wanted Russia to be a partner. So it's a pretty dramatic shift. So that's one of the key questions. How is this going to play out? How are different countries going to be bearing the economic shocks of this war? We will see, but it certainly seems that the NATO leaders are in a position now where they're going to say, actually, this is worth the fight. This is worth the costs.
So interesting to see how Vladimir Putin's objections to NATO have reverberated and really come back with people in NATO states being ever more interested in countering Russian aggression. All right, Kathleen McInnis, so interesting to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you.